So, our topic at hand today is body shop scanner functions. Now, of course, these scanner functions I'm going to talk about don't necessarily aren't exclusively just for body shops, but kind of went through the tool and found out, well, here's some useful things you could use in a body shop. Of course, any general repair shop would be able to also do the same thing because the scanner is no different, whether it's in a body shop versus in a general repair shop, of course. But these are some things that may be more common in a body shop, and body shops have been coming along as buying scan tool because pretty much every shop really needs a scan tool at this point. Because what can you replace on a vehicle that doesn't need a scan tool at some point? Especially the newer 24s, 25s, 26s. So there is often things that body shops need to do since they're getting newer vehicles in usually for collision repair. But there's often a lot of things that need to be done. So why do body shops need diagnostics nowadays? So vehicle complexity for sure, right? Hundreds of modules on a vehicle. Um, they're more weight. They're like rolling computer networks, basically, right? So they have all these modules and wiring and all that stuff on there. Mandatory pre and post scans, right? This started back, about 10 years ago now, 2016. OEMs started coming out with these position statements as to, okay, if a vehicle is in collision, since we do have all these, newer ADAS and things like that on there, we need to make sure that that vehicle, what was wrong with it when it got there, and make sure that it's a clean bill of health when it leaves. So that's where the pre and post scans started coming from. And then, of course, it just kind of snowballed from there. Documentation, right? You need to document things that are wrong with the vehicle, building estimates, things like that, tying everything kind of together. Repair information, right? I need to know how to repair this window regulator, or I need to know what the wiring diagram looks like in case a wiring harness got damaged or something like that. And then, of course, after the fact, definitely very common nowadays, relearns and calibrations, especially with body in the body world. You got your radars and your cameras and ultrasonic sensors and all the other ADAS things that are behind body work that often need to be relearned or calibrated, right? So, talking about vehicle complexity, as we know, there can be more than 100 modules on a vehicle, sometimes quite a few more than 100 modules on a vehicle. Vehicle technology changes at a pace of about every 38 days or so, and I would say maybe even faster than that at this point. Many vehicles have ADAS features as standard. I think you're pretty hard pressed to buy a vehicle today that doesn't have some sort of ADAS on it, be it a camera or a radar or ultrasonic sensors or what have you. And there are many different methods of repair and diagnosis, and body shops as well as general repair need to really keep up with them. If we think about all the different things on a vehicle, right? Airbag, that's definitely a big thing in body shop world. Adaptive front lighting, cruise control, automatic braking, active vibration control, auto dimming mirrors, active cabin noise suppression, entertainment system, battery management, lane correction, uh, navigation. No, I said navigation already. Hill hold, regenerative braking, tire pressure monitoring. All of these things make these vehicles, like I said, rolling networks. It's multiple systems on these vehicles and multiple systems that are integrated together, right? Especially when it comes to ADAS. The camera and the radar, all these sensors, call it sensor fusion on the vehicle. So, talking about mandatory pre and post scans, starting in 2016, like I said, manufacturers began mandating pre and post scans after any collision and before any collision work is done. Now, pre-scan is going to, of course, show the vehicle condition upon arrival because we don't always have lights associated with every module. And then a post-scan is going to verify that the repair is complete, of course, after the fact, giving the car a clean bill of health and saying, hey, we repaired this however long it took us to repair it and whatever we did. Then we road tested it, and then now we have taken this post-scan, and there's that clean bill of health. Now, I will say, I've spoken to plenty of body shops out there, and they say at this point, nowadays it's become so commonplace and part of the industry that they'll do a pre-scan and a post-scan, but also if it's a really big job, they'll get to like a certain milestone and they'll do another scan just to kind of see where they're at, right? So if maybe they had to do some engine work first before they did on the exterior, so they'll do the engine work, then do a scan, and then they'll do another set of work, and then they'll do a scan and another set of work. So they could be getting paid for scans from the insurance company. More on that in a minute. But they could be getting paid from insurance companies multiple times just to scan a vehicle. right? So that can help a lot as a profit center, even if you think about it. Some shops with large volume, that could really put a dent in the bottom line for sure. So here's just an example, all the different OEMs. There are some websites out there that you can go and look these up. OEM One Stop is one of them that we usually use because that just gives you access to these OEM statements, position statements, they call it. And this is an excerpt right here. It's from Toyota. Considering the fact that a capable scan tool is the only way to identify some DTCs, Toyota requires that repairers perform a health check diagnostic scan if a vehicle has sustained damage as a result of a collision that may affect electrical systems. Like we said, pretty much anything on a car nowadays. Additionally, Toyota strongly recommends that repairers perform a health check diagnostic scan before and after every repair to identify and document DTCs. If DTCs are identified pre-repair, then they can be considered to create a complete vehicle damage analysis report. If they're identified post-repair, then they can be diagnosed and addressed before returning the vehicle to the customer, right? Makes sense. And the similar verbiage across all the different brands. I think pretty much every OEM has that out there at this point. So we offer, as Snap-on, with the Snap-on tool, a comprehensive vehicle system report. All of our tools are able to produce this. So it's going to give you your vehicle record, your shop information, vehicle information, code scan results, and so on and so forth. Let's get a little bit deeper in here. So, for example, date and time that the scan was performed, so that way you can document that here's where it was scanned. Of course, you got to make sure the clock on the tool is set right, but other than that, it does set it automatically. Puts a date stamp and a timestamp on there. You can put your information in there for your shop. And then down here, it's going to pull the VIN when it does the auto ID or instant ID, right? And then it'll pull the rest of the vehicle there. And then down below, it's going to show overall health by system. So we'll see the ABS, power sliding door module, OBD2, where it needs to be addressed. And then all the green shows where it doesn't need to be addressed. And then if we go a little bit deeper, it is going to show us code detail by system. And then it'll also show us the readiness monitors down below as well. So if many states require a emissions test, right? So an inspection, right? So having all the readiness monitors complete before a vehicle needs to go for inspection, that's obviously very important. So if I've had this vehicle for a while and I need to get it inspected before the customer takes it back, then I would want to make sure all those readiness monitors are complete before I go and bring it for the inspection. Now, as far as billing for pre and post scans, you can utilize the position statements, right? The manufacturer says, hey, this must be done as a part of course. Now, this is kind of a carryover from the early days, right? So in the early days, depending on who your insurance adjuster was, you might have varying success levels with this. As I said earlier, I think pretty much this is standard operating practice at this point to do the pre and post scans and get paid for them. So you would utilize the position statements, though, if somebody gives you any trouble, and then provide on the vehicle system reports. And then, pretty much any insurance company that's out there nowadays covers these at this point, right? And of course, you can share them. You can print them out. You can share them with your phone, tablet, laptop, desktop, PC, Mac, using the free Snap-on cloud service at altusdrive.com. That allows you to, share. You could share with the insurance company, however you'd wish to do so. Now, once the vehicle's scanned, of course, it needs to be repaired. So body shops need access to vehicle repair information. Now, most body shops will already have existing estimating software for sure. The two bigger ones out there are CCC1 and Mitchell. So you'll take the car in, you'll scan it, add that information into the estimating software. Then the repairs to the vehicle are made, of course. Then we will do a post scan, whatever else we need to do, document that, and then the vehicle is on the way. Obviously, there's a lot of things that go on in between there. But if we think about, I almost got a couple arrows animating in here. So if we think about having having that repair information there, not just if I'm thinking about ShopKey or Snap-on information, right? We also have this software called Sun Collision software. that is like ShopKey Pro plus additional body componentry, right? And how to repair different body panels and uh, points for the frame to make sure the frame is straight and all sorts of other things. I don't get a lot of use out of it because I don't train it, I don't sell it. But I have seen our reps, talking to people about it, like SEMA and stuff like that. They talk about it. And for sure, they have like all these repair packages. You could build a pretty healthy estimate just within the Sun Collision software, right? So might be something to look into. And then, of course, since we have a Windows-based scan tool in the Zeus Plus or the Zeus Workstation, the estimating software can be installed on it. We've had a fair number of shops throughout that have their estimating software actually installed on a workstation out in the shop. So they can have that integration with the scan tool, right? So here it is running on, in this case, is a Veris Edge workstation, and you can see it is running there on that workstation. It is a touchscreen as well, so that might make things easier for you too. So some shops like having that whole integration with the scan tool and their estimating software and everything kind of in one piece, in one place, allows them to manage everything, copy and paste, drag and drop, all that good stuff. And of course, having repair information on the tool is invaluable, especially for body shops, which historically, I guess you could say they had less and less of them had repair information at hand. I think that, like I said, has changed in the last 5-10 years, where now that they know that it's a requirement, they know that it's necessary. But what can help them, because sometimes the person using it they're not the scan tool person, they're just the person that knows how to use the scan tool, right? They're not a diagnostic technician necessarily. Sometimes they are technicians, I'm sure too, but it's not always the case. They don't always have all that diagnostic experience. So having the fast track intelligent diagnostics workflow on the tool can also save them a ton of time by helping them showing pattern failures and TSBs and all the filtered data and information that we provide based on code. Also, as I mentioned earlier, right, optional ShopKey Pro, Sun Collision, or Snap-on information system availability allows them to look up things like, here's my TSBs, here's my fixes, OEM testing, and of course, wiring diagrams too, right? We talk about wiring diagrams and how that's important because there very well may be a wiring issue or damage due to a collision, considering the harnesses run all throughout the body. Obviously, I've seen that many, many times where it breaks a connector off or whatever. Having the wire diagram on the tool right where you need it, it can be very invaluable as well. And then, of course, don't forget, on the tools that have the guided component tests, they have more than just engine in there. There are body electrical tests in there. There are ADAS tests in there. So anything you might need in particular for that, and you don't even necessarily need to use it for the component testing aspect of it. You could use it to just get some information, right? So we have an example here. It's a 2016 Chrysler Town and Country. So this is the the Chrysler minivan, obviously, and in this case, it's having an issue with throttle control. But if we go into guided component tests and we go into engine, we can see also in here, like I said, there's body electrical, there's ABS, there's driver aids and ADAS, but engine in this case we're going to go into. And then we see all the different things, and we go into throttle control system, and then we'll pull up the throttle position sensor, right? It's throwing a code for a position sensor, I guess. We'll go into component information. It says it uses 2 throttle position sensors. As the throttle open, both of the signals will vary accordingly. These sensors measure throttle opening and position, are used by the ECM to calculate engine load and compensate fuel delivery accordingly. These signals are also used by the TCM to adjust line pressure, calculate shift timing, and other related operations. Remember how I said everything's kind of together. TPS1 ranges a 0.5 volt to 4.5 at wide open throttle. TPS2 goes the other way, so it should be about the same, and it's going to equal 5 volts at all opening, and that's kind of its check on itself, right? It should expect 5 volts. So if it's 0.5 volt at fully closed, and then the other one's 4.5 volts at fully closed, that's 5 volts, right? So in between, everywhere in between, though, they will cross in the middle at 2.5 volts at 50% throttle, but anywhere above and below, they should sum to 5 volts. Now, if we look over here, here's the actual throttle body, but we also have a PCM connector right here, where of course it connects to. So the best location in this case to test for the throttle position sensor would be at the throttle body. We're locating an electronic throttle control module on the side of the throttle body unit. However, in this vehicle, if I'm still having trouble, or maybe I'm having trouble on the other end of things, like the PCM things, we can go back to the menu, pull out the PCM, and lo and behold, we go to module location, and this says it's located in the left front fender well. Inner fender liner must be removed for access. So if this vehicle got in a collision on the left front, which is pretty likely, got in a left front collision, push the wheel in or whatever, that ECM or the wiring could very well be damaged. So having that location there can be very invaluable, and having that information. It also has the pinouts available in there too. I don't have a screenshot of that, but you could pop into pinouts. It's going to give you all the pinouts for that PCM, right? So very helpful. So if there's a collision in the left front, smash up the computer. That's why it's still not working correctly. Once the repair is complete, there's often a calibration or a relearn that needs to be done, as you may very well be aware at this point. Now, some examples that are going to be for the collision world, especially, re-zero the occupant detection sensors. So in the seats, usually it's only the passenger seat, but front passenger seat, but oftentimes now there can be in the rear seats as well, rear seat detection. You need to recalibrate those occupant detection sensors if you do any seat work on the vehicle. Recalibrate window motors, you replace a glass. You got to redo something with the regulator, the door gets hit or something like that. Re-aim front cameras, of course. Recalibrate blind spot monitors, radars, any of the ADAS type functions that you would see on a modern vehicle, of course, requires a relearn or calibration as well. So here's an example we have on a 2017 Genesis G80. Got in a collision in the front, and the front radar needs to be calibrated. So in order to do this, you do need a spirit level. So you'll need to do a vertical level adjustment and a horizontal level adjustment. So in this case, this is our friend Mike Reynolds, who's in South Carolina. He's a mobile ADAS calibration technician, and he sent us this case study. But you see right there, it is a digital protractor or angle gauge there in this case, 90 degrees there. And then a little bit to the left by 0.2 degrees. That's well within where it needs to be, right? Well within spec. Now, vertical measurement can be adjusted with an adjustment screw, but it's exactly where it needs to be. Right? There are sometimes there's manual adjustments, sometimes it's automatic. All right, and then we'll pop into the service resets and relearns menu here. Scroll down to our ADAS, find the replace or calibrate front radar job, and then we'll go into functional resets and calibrations. That'll pull up the SCC alignment calibration, so that's smart cruise control. All right, and then the calibration. So the purpose of the function is to align sensors if sensors are replaced, or if the vehicle has an accident with structural damage that require wheel alignment. In case it needs to be when the radar sensors change, in case of light contact, accident, or strong shock against the sensor. From vehicles not detected while running on the road, steering angle sensor replaced or calibrated. You need to have no DTCs, and the ignition needs to be on. And then there is a park mode, which is a static, staying still. And then also a running mode where you can drive the vehicle, right? So in this case, we want to do the running mode to drive the vehicle. So here's what we would do. We'd attach a new radar sensor, fix the sensor perpendicular by a tilt meter, which he did. Turn the key on, connect the diagnostic tool in the vehicle, and execute the alignment adjustment. Check the red warning light on the cluster. Driving about 50 kilometers an hour for 10 to 15 minutes. If you don't have an electronic tilt meter, you can adjust the sensor to perpendicular by locating a bubble on the center by tilt meter or bubble type. So a bubble level. If you do any of these things, it will delay the relearn. So excessive steering and lane change, low speed driving under the requested speed or stop. Driving on roads with fewer obstacles, and driving in bad weather. I continue. And then basically what it does is it will put it into the mode that it's going to calibrate. And it says driving mode sensor alignment process is started. Disconnect the diagnostic tool from the vehicle and drive the vehicle. So that's nice. You don't have to have it connected to it while you're going. Red warning light will turn off automatically. The alignment calibration is successfully completed. So in this case, we see a yellow warning light. It says, hey, forward collision is not working. Drive the vehicle. And then, shortly down the road, you will see the green light turn on. You can set the cruise and all that good stuff. So in that case, everything working the way it should. And that's the calibration. So it worked out pretty well. And then once the repairs are complete, perform a post scan to verify the repairs are indeed complete. So like I said, we need to document. The OEM is going to request a report for that, pre and post scan, of course, that can then be delivered to the customer, and you can feel confident that the repair was completed properly to OEM specifications. So that's a lovely thing. So let's go live in the shop and look at a few different things that we can do that would be body shop or mechanical, yes, body shop, collision repair. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Collision repair related. So let's take a look.
All right, so in the shop today we have a 22 Volkswagen Taos. And we'll just kind of go through some of the things on the scanner that we might need if in a body shop type situation, like, after a collision or whatever. Also, there is a reason I'm out under the hood here today, and we'll get to that here in a minute. So of course, first things first, on the top of the screen we have code scan. Of course, we want to do those pre-scans, post-scans, and sometimes, in between scans that you might need to do over the course of a repair. Of course, your engine, transmission, airbag here, though, I think would be pretty helpful. There's some things in there. Oops, hit the wrong button. Let me go into airbag. Okay, we've got to log into the ECU. Okay, of course, we have codes, data, but functional tests. There's a couple different tests we can do. So if we go into special functions, we see airbag index coding function. So that is after you replace the airbag. It's going to actually give you a little test description if you hit the button. So this feature is used to code a new airbag ECU to a vehicle or modify the existing code in some variants. Be aware that most modern airbag ECUs can only be coded once. Therefore, we should be sure the code you're entering is correct, as you may not be able to change it. So I'm not going any further there. But that's just an example of what you might be able to do there. Airbag adaptation, airbag diagnostic test mode, so that walks it through a diagnostic test. Seat occupied recognition basic settings. So if you replace a seat, or even in this case, this will tell you, so what this is going to do is transfer the serial number of the passenger occupant detection system control module. So that's that bladder under the seat that lets the vehicle know that there's somebody in the seat, to the airbag control module. It also will do the 0-point calibration of the seat occupant detection. Basic setting is necessary after replacing a component that's part of the occupant detection system, for example, the passenger occupant detection system control module or the passenger seat occupant detection sensor. It's also necessary after replacing the seat covering. So just be aware that you would possibly need to do that. I know on some of the older systems I worked on Subaru, you had to, even if you so much as cracked one of the bolts loose, you had to recalibrate it. We're not going to recalibrate this one in this case. And then there's some basic settings in here. It's going to depend on the vehicle. Sometimes key on engine running, sometimes key on engine off. Just follow the instructions on the screen. There's another reset here for the seat occupied recognition. Reset rollover bar deployments. So if there happen to be some necessary action with that. Seat occupied recognition serial number, and then your left and right belt tensioner serial numbers can be input there as well. And then if we come back here, I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and I want to also talk about, for example, the door electronics. So if we go into, say, the passenger side, and then we go into functional tests in here. Some special functions. We have adapt the front limit stops and soft stops. So that's for the window. You replace the window. You might need to do an adaptation there. Rear side on the passenger as well. And then basic setting for front window regulator on the passenger side. So any glass work that I might need to do on the doors, I would have to do there. And then we also have central electronics, which is going to be a lot of your body controls. So you see codes, data, functional tests, special functions, adaptation for the door locking. A lot of these are going to be options for the body control module, just how it acts. All right, so acoustic feedback at unlocking and locking, activate showroom mode, rain light sensor replace. So if you have to replace that, There's something for that. Sunroof, basic settings for that. Wiper motor control unit, so some settings for that. So a lot of things, as you can see, definitely need a scan tool. One of the more common ones, and like I said, why I'm out here in the first place, one of the more common things, and this would apply not necessarily just to body shops, but of course, general repair shops as well, is when I replace the battery, I have to recode that battery into the computer. Now, we get a lot of phone calls at tech support where people don't know exactly where to look for it. They'll say, oh, this test is missing on the tool. The tool doesn't have it. And in fact, it does have it. It's just Volkswagen decided to hide it in a different module. Sometimes it's in the central electronics module. Sometimes, in this case, it is in the diagnostic data interface gateway. So if I go in there, hit continue, and we go into functional tests, special functions. We have a generator alternator charge test function, transport mode, and then there it is, adapt battery. All right, so if I go into adapt battery, adapt the battery to the gateway control module. The adaptation may only be performed when a new battery is fitted. You can also just function through the menus and not make any changes, which is what I'm going to do. You can change the capacity, battery technology, manufacturer. There's also a place where you need to plug in the serial number for the battery. So we would tap on that arrow and that would plug in the serial number. Now we can see we got a sticker on the battery right here, and that's the serial number. It also has any of the other things that you need to put in there, like the amp hour rating and stuff like that over here. And then you would hit program, and it's going to say continue to program and save the modified value. Hit continue. It's going to write it, or actually it's going to tell you, here's the original value, here's what we're writing, and here's what it read back. We'll hit program, and then it programs it in, right? It's test complete. So you can see there's a lot of different functions that you might need. Oh, by the way, one last thing on the screen, reset of reversible crash shutoff. So many modern vehicles also, when it does detect a collision, it will turn off certain things. It'll turn off the fuel pump. Sometimes it just turns off all the electronics, just so, avoid causing a fire, things like that in a crash. So sometimes there's like a fuse that blows. So there are resets available on certain vehicles where we could do that. So in this case, we have reset of reversible crash shutoff. So if it detected a crash, it's going to have a shutoff. So I would go in here, and it just kind of does it. Flips the switch, it's a little reset, and then we're done, right? So that says end of test. So as you can see, there's a lot of different functions that are available to the scan tool that you might need in the body shop. And hopefully this helped give a little bit more color to what you might need to do.
All right. Let me turn my camera back on. There I am. All right. So a few different functions in there. That battery one's kind of a big thing, right? Because it can be in one of many different modules in order to recalibrate the battery. And if you've worked on one and you expect to find it here, and then you're working on this car and it's not where you thought it was, well, then that might constitute a phone call, like we said. So that is body shops and why we need a scan tool in the body shop. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about next week. If I can get my slides to move. There we go. Next week, we are back to replays. So we are doing EV software functions. So that will be same time as always, though. Every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central on the YouTube and the Zoom. And then Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central on Facebook. So if you want to join us on Zoom, go to snapon.com/OT. Sign up there. It'll give you a link that you can go. Snap-on Diagnostics is the username on YouTube. Scan the QR code on the left to follow us there. On the right, it's Snap-on Diagnostics Product and Training on Facebook. Scan that QR code to give us a follow over there. We've had quite the follower increase in the last month or so. It's been going pretty well. So we do post a fair amount over there as well. So pretty happy with the team with that. Also, if you want to see any of our past episodes on these topics, anywhere from intro to ADAS through automatic transmission, special functions, and everything in between. This is episode 139 we're doing right now. And we will be continuing throughout the year. So they're all free. They're all roughly half hour, 40 minutes long. Kind of depends on the topic at hand. And, go to youtube.com/SnapOnDiagnostics. There is a playlist for live training. and that'll bring you to take a look. They're all free, right? Also, do we have your email address? If we do not have your email address, you are missing out on some good diagnostics information like technical focus articles, SureTrack blogs, quick tips, new product releases, all those good things. They also send out my schedule periodically, so you know what's coming up as far as stuff in the live stream world. So make sure you scan that QR code if you're not getting those emails, and then type in your information, and you will start getting those emails. All right, time for questions. If you do have a question on Zoom, just find that Q&A button at the top or bottom of your screen. Looks like I got one there. Let's see. Jay McCall says, with service resets and relearns, do I still have to look through the modules? Not necessarily. There are sometimes some functions aren't mapped to a job. So if you can't find it in service resets, I would say go find it like in the module you'd suspect. And that kind of the other half of that question is, if I can't find it on the vehicle in the place where I think it should be, then I could go into service resets and it should show up from the module that that it's required in. So for example, on that Volkswagen, if you went to replace battery, it would pull it out of that central module or that diagnostic module instead of the gateway module instead of the central diagnostics module, right? So kind of goes either way. The majority of the time they should be in the service resets, but there are instances where it's not mapped to it, as we call it. So I would say check there first. If you don't find it, maybe go check in one of the other modules where you suspect it might be. I guess that's my best advice there, Jay, but good question. And then on the YouTube, Mr. Mega the X-Man says, let's roll. Yes, sir. And then Hussein says, hello, thank you, Mr. Gabrinas. And I say thank you, sir, for joining us, as always, as you do every week. So we got a lot of regulars around here. Do definitely appreciate you following along. So with that, looks like we've cleared the big board. So thank you very much. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with me. Hopefully we learned a few things about body shop related diagnosis and repair. Hopefully you'll join me next week for EV scanner functions. With that, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a nice night and take care.